Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Charles Moscowitz live stream as I launch this program, hopefully Monday through Friday at 12 noon every day, to do and to build a live stream online community that's interactive. You're welcome to send comments through the Facebook page, and I'll read those on the air and comment on them. The program, of course, is carried live on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, and several other venues. So this is a great venture for me, as a former radio talk show host, getting myself back in the game a bit. And I'm hoping to build an online community that's very similar to the way I used to do it when I was on the air. By the way, if you want to reach the program more directly, you can call 617-396-4830. That number again is 617-396-4830. It would be great to hear from you, and we can talk literally on the air, I suppose, as they used to say, but now it's, I guess, online, on the stream, whatever. Anyway, so the big news today is that President Donald Trump is going to sign the budget, the annual budget bill, which will keep the government open for another year, and which, by the way, is a $335 billion bill. No one quite knows what's in it. It's a big story on that score. This is another one of those things like what Nancy Pelosi said about the Obamacare bill. You'll have to sign it before you find out what's in it. And that's $250 billion that's going to be added to the national debt. And I'm sure there's all sorts of little things in there that we'll never even know about. A while ago, I think it was about a year or two ago, I interviewed Jack Abramoff, the former lobbyist who went to prison for his activities with Native American casinos. And he explained a lot about how that works. He said that as a lobbyist, he would basically, indirectly or even sometimes more directly pay or arrange for payment to a political committee or a congressional committee or a re-election committee or some kind of a committee that helped a particular congressman that they were trying to target. And in exchange, that congressman would add a little piece of something to an upcoming bill. Oftentimes, this little thing had nothing to do with the bill. And it was very obscure. It was very opaque. In other words, if you looked at the bill as a normal person, you would have no idea what that was. It would say, like a little in parentheses, reference H13-25-zoo-boo-bee-boo, and nobody would know what the heck it meant, and you'd have to go through all these layers to finally get to it. And once you finally did, if you had if you weren't ready to crack your brain over it, you would find that it was money towards something that this lobbyist wanted to have happen, or some kind of a law that would protect this particular either industry or specific business against competition. In other words, something that is shady and not necessarily constitutional. And that these bills were filled with these things. So I have no doubt, and Abramoff said that it's still happening, there's been very little reform. So I have no doubt that this bill is filled with that kind of stuff, and that we're going to never know really what the money is going to. All we'll know is that it's the budget increases, the debt increases, and that basically you're going to have something down the pike where you'll find out that you can't do something. You violated some law. Attorney Harvey Silverglade of Harvard is very good at this. He's written a couple of books on the topic. How many thousands of laws are passed without our even knowing it that can affect our freedoms, can affect our futures in ways that we can't even imagine and that we don't know about until we might bump up against them, often inadvertently, because no one even knew they existed. So it's a very corrupt system, basically. And I think it was, it must have been 10 years ago now, that Representative Shadegg, I believe his name was, from Arizona, submitted a bill before Congress saying that all laws have to be no no larger than, I think it was 5 pages, no more than 3,000 words, and that they have to be publicly posted so that the media can see it, the citizen can see it, high school civics classes can see it, where they can debate it, that the making of laws needs to be more transparent and public so that the American people can know exactly what it is that our representatives in Congress are doing and are submitting. Now, also, I might point out that President Trump, as he signs this budget bill, if he had access to the line item veto, he could cross out some of these lines, literally, and not have to sign the entire bill, which to me seems eminently fair, because you've got probably hundreds, if not upwards of 1,000 different things going on in these massive bills, which are as big as a telephone book. And when a president signs the bill, as is his constitutional prerogative, he signs it into law after Congress passes it. But why should he have to sign every piece of that bill? Seems to be a constitutionally sound idea that he or she would only have to sign the parts of that bill that they wanted to sign, then the rest of it would have to be sent back to Congress to be redebated and hopefully out in the public. But of course, if we have the Shadeg bill in place, they wouldn't even be able to do these big mega bills anyway. Anyway, so the reason I bring this up is because apparently simultaneously to the signing of the budget bill, which will keep the government open so we don't have to go through that again, President Trump is signing an executive order, what's being called a national emergency, to obtain funding for the building of the wall on the southern border. And while I do support the building of the wall, I think it's critical for our safety, for our sovereignty, for hundreds of reasons. And while I think the majority of the American people want that wall built and have wanted it built, going all the way back maybe 30 years, nevertheless, I don't celebrate the fact that he is signing this executive order. I don't think that this is a good precedent. I must grudgingly agree with Nancy Pelosi's slimy threat during her press conference, where she pointed out that if President Trump wants to sign this bill, what they're calling an emergency order, this executive order, then what's going to stop a Democratic president from signing a gun control law without congressional approval that would confiscate everyone's guns? And she's right. It is very troubling to think about that. They could very easily declare a national emergency if there's another school shooting and simply go in and seize every private citizen's gun. Not that it would be relevant to it, but of course with the Democrats, relevancy has nothing to do with it. If they wanted to be relevant, they would stop these after-the-birth abortions, which is a reversion to an ancient Greek practice of leaving a baby on the side of a mountain, if that baby is deemed by a judge to be not viable and not someone that could grow up to be a useful human resource to help the society. This was a practice that was so heinous and so evil and so immoral that the Romans banned it. It hasn't existed in any legal sense in the history of Western civilization up until now. But putting that aside, I only bring that up as an illustration to show how irrational and how demented the left has become and is, and how their agenda has nothing to do with any common sense realities that we normally function on. I bring it up because Pelosi's right. This is very troubling precedent. I'm not suggesting, I understand that it's been done before. I understand there's been something like 20 emergencies declared since I think it's since this bill was passed in the late 1990s, I believe, or the early 2000s. And also, look, Obama did executive orders in an unprecedented level, and they were not, President Trump's executive orders have been primarily negative executive orders in that he is rescinding the questionable constitutional executive orders of his predecessors, both Obama and the Bushes. But yet Obama did many positive, vigorous congressional executive orders that bypassed Congress, the most famous of which was the DACA order that Obama himself admitted was constitutionally questionable. But now we have President Trump reverting to this same thing, and it's of concern. It does increase executive power. It is a move toward a more fascistic system. I am critical of it. I'm not going to excuse it. I'm simply going to point out that it's a complicated question because this is something that many congressional bills have passed previous, going back to Reagan, that did authorize the building of a border fence or a border wall, and that those were ignored by subsequent successive administrations and Congresses. So, in a sense, I think you could argue that President Trump is basically signing an order that requires the government to fulfill that which was lawfully passed by Congresses in the past. I mean, Ronald Reagan was snookered into signing a bill that offered amnesty to a very large number of people. I don't know how many, maybe millions, in 1987 in exchange for the creation of a border wall or a fence or a barrier. They got their amnesty. They never got the border wall. This was, he said as he left office that this was his one biggest regret. He'd been fooled by Congress. So what that tells you is that Congress did pass a bill already. They did allocate funds already. There were several passed, I think, subsequently during the Bushes and Obama and Clinton, and all of those presidents waved their hands in the air, including Obama. I mean, I've been listening to videos of this. I mean, it's out there that we must stop illegal immigration. We must secure our borders. They've all said it. None of them did it. They were giving lip service because they know that not only is this something that the American people across the board want, but it's something that makes sense. Of course you secure the national border. I got into that yesterday. I'm not going to go back. But now President Trump actually means it. He ran on this issue, which many presidents have done in the past. He described it in more blunt terms, often crudely, which many presidents did not do in the past. But he means it. He intends to do it, and now he's doing it. So, on balance, while I am concerned and nervous about the idea of taking an emergency action, and I think President Trump is too. I think he would have rather not have done it this way. At the same time, it is necessary for practical reasons. We have to secure the southern border. And it's being done for reasons by which he's fulfilling congressional laws that have already been passed. So you can argue that. I would argue that with nervousness about executive orders and emergency decrees. And I think we could all hope that once the executive order is in place, while we can expect the usual demagoguery from the left and the waving of fists in the air and the white faces and the, who knows what they'll do. They'll crazy. I mean, they'll go out and put on their knitted caps and hit the streets. I don't know. In the bigger picture, they're on the wrong side on the issue itself. And that if President Trump is able to allocate the funds and build the wall, and the American people see that it works, and that we've cut down on crime, that he was right about criminals coming across the border, and that will be reduced, then I think that we'll all applaud, and that's exactly what the left and the Democrats are afraid of, which is essentially, well, not essentially, but which is largely why they oppose the ball. Essentially, they oppose it because they don't believe in sovereignty. They don't believe in national borders. I got into that yesterday. I'm not going to go too far today. But, the point is it'll be a success if he does it. It'll be a success not only because he will have fulfilled his raison d'etre as president, which was to build the wall, but because it will prove that walls work. Of course they work. Just like when you lock your car door, it works because it reduces the likelihood that your car is going to be stolen by a very high percentage. It doesn't guarantee it, but it probably reduces it by 90%. So yeah, the border wall will work. He's also strengthening, ports of entry, and all of that's good. And I'm going to conclude just with another quick thought on this. But before I do, let me give out the numbers. So you're welcome to call again. This is a live stream program. Charles Moscowitz live stream, Monday through Friday, 12 noon, 617-396-4830. 617-396-4830. What is on your mind this afternoon? I just want to conclude by pointing out that one of the reasons why President Trump has decided to take this drastic action, even though the bill the congressional budget bill does allocate allegedly $2 billion, which is not enough, but at least it's there, to build the wall. When you take a look at the actual, you go into the weeds and you take a look at the language of the bill, which is how these bills are written, you can see that they really don't have any intention of allowing for a wall to be built, because there's all these strings attached to that small amount of money. And by the way, it is a small amount of money when you take a look at this $335 billion budget. And some of the other things that they're spending money on, which is a fascinating subject that would make anyone's blood boil if they really delved into it. That there's all these strings attached to it. There's, you have to have local authorities come in. You have to have this. You have to have that. You can't build on this piece. You can't build on that piece. In other words, they make sure that it's never going to happen, basically. And I think when President Trump saw that, and when his government saw that, they were outraged. They knew what this was about. It's a fraud. This is a shell game. This is three-card Monte. I don't know if anyone who lives in Boston, who's around my age, probably remembers walking through the Boston Commons, and you'd have these guys playing three-card Monte. They'd have, or it was like some kind of a shell game, I guess it was, where they would put out these three shells on the ground, and they would move them around, boom, 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 and they would have somebody come in from the crowd gathering and say, pick the shell. They lift it up, and there would be, like a diamond ring or something, or a watch. Oh my God, I've made a. And then they pull someone else in. It turns out that person was a shill. They pull someone else in. They put it under. They mix them up. You'd have to pay like $10, whatever it was, and then they'd lift it up, and there'd be nothing. It was they called it three-card Monte, I believe. Well, that's what this is, three-card Monte. And I think President Trump, as a businessman, knows damn well what's going on here, and he's not going to play ball with it. So, ultimately, I believe it's a good thing because I trust President Trump to do the right thing. I know that he's steeped in the Constitution. And yes, it's troubling to think that a Democrat could come along and simply use executive power to ban everything if they wanted to. Pelosi is right about that. But given the fact that we have a Congress who for 30 years has not been able to do this, we have several administrations, both Democrat and Republican, who have not been able to do the right thing here, and that we've had congressional laws that have approved of the building of a wall, or whatever you want to call it, and the proper funds to make sure that happens, but they haven't done it, then I think that there is congressional precedent here. Even though it's still an executive order and nobody likes that, I don't. I'm not celebrating that. But there is enough legal precedents in place to make the case that this is a fulfillment of congressional law that had been made into law and signed, and that it's certainly, you can make the case, that it is a fulfillment of the will of the American people, and that they have expressed that will over and over again through their congressional representatives who haven't done the job. So President Trump is apparently going to do this. And so I, for one, with great reservation, understand that he should be applauded for doing it. I don't think he's happy about doing it, but it must be done. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I shall return, God willing, Monday at 12 noon here at Moscowitz live stream. You certainly are welcome to check out my books. They are available at Amazon.com. And please subscribe to my YouTube page. That is what's going to help me build this program. YouTube is the gold standard of all of the subscribing streamers that I have, and I've got many. But YouTube is where it's at. So please subscribe on YouTube. Chuck Moskowitz signing off. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining me.